Imagine winning 60 games in the regular season. You know, you just dominate your conference for 6 straight months. You finally conquer your playoff demons. And
Right.
then you find yourself in a game 7 on your home floor. The energy in the building is just deafening. And then, in the most important 24 minutes of your entire season, your MVP candidate superstar scores exactly 1 point.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that is the absolute nightmare the Detroit Pistons just lived through.
It's just, it's a staggering scenario to process because when you look at a Game 7 on paper, you anticipate this really grueling possession-by-possession battle of attrition, right?
Where every single shot feels incredibly heavy.
Exactly. But watching the Cleveland Cavaliers dismantle the Pistons, like 125-94, it wasn't a battle of attrition. It was literally watching a perfectly executed demolition of a building.
Oh, for sure.
The Cavaliers just identified every single load-bearing wall in Detroit's defensive structure, and they systematically removed them until the whole thing just collapsed.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are putting you right in the middle of that demolition. Our mission today is to figure out the precise schematic changes Cleveland made to pull off this historic Game 7 victory.
Which officially books their first trip to the Eastern Conference Finals without LeBron James on the roster since, what, 1992?
1992. Yeah, wild.
Okay.
But we aren't stopping there. Once we unpack how Cleveland broke Detroit, we are going to look at the financial aftermath. Because the Pistons front office is waking up to this incredibly complex, multi-million-dollar puzzle.
And their window to solve it is closing fast.
Okay.
I mean, to understand the magnitude of Detroit's off-season dilemma,
Yeah.
you really have to start by looking at what Cleveland's offense did to them.
Right.
It exposed flaws that you can't just fix with, like, a motivational speech in the locker room. It started right at the top of the scouting report with Donovan Mitchell. Detroit spent days building a game plan specifically to force the ball out of his hands.
Right, and the natural assumption for a casual fan watching at home is that for Cleveland to win a blowout like this, Mitchell must have gone completely supernova.
Oh yeah, you'd expect to see 45 points in the box score.
Exactly. But he finished with a very solid 26 points. The number that completely jumped off the page in my notes, though, was the 8 assists.
Yeah.
I mean, he tallied 3 assists on Cleveland's first 4 baskets. He came out passing instead of shooting.
Which is brilliant, you know, because of the psychological effect it has on a defense that is totally over-prepared for a scorer. When a defense decides to trap a star player...
Sending 2 guys at him right at half court.
Right. They're making a calculated gamble. They're betting the star will panic, hold onto the ball too long, or, you know, try to split the double team and turn it over. But Mitchell saw the trap coming and essentially said, yeah, I will gladly accept that math.
The analogy that keeps playing in my head is watching a veteran quarterback read a defense.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right, because if you have a QB with a cannon for an arm, the defense might drop all their safeties deep to take away the 50-yard bomb. A young player might try to force that throw anyway and get picked off.
Yeah, try to play the hero.
But a veteran simply manages the clock. He takes the high-percentage short passes, checks it down to his running backs, and just methodically marches down the field, 5 yards at a time. Was Mitchell deciding to become a game manager the ultimate codebreaker for them?
It was the skeleton key to the entire series, honestly. By taking exactly what the defense gave him, without forcing isolation plays, Mitchell preserved his own legs for the fourth quarter.
Makes sense.
And simultaneously, he's building his teammates' rhythm. When you constantly feed the ball to your front court early in a game, those big men start playing with a completely different level of physical engagement.
Right, they run faster, they screen harder.
Exactly. And that confidence turns into an absolute avalanche.
Which brings us to the most terrifying part of that avalanche, which was Cleveland's Twin Towers. Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen were just a complete force of nature.
Unstoppable.
Just looking at Mobley, his stat line is absurd. 21 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. And looking at the series as a whole, he averaged 4.3 stocks, steals plus blocks, while shooting over 62% from two-point range. For someone trying to visualize that impact, what does averaging over 4 steals and blocks in a series actually do to an opposing offense?
It completely alters the geometry of the basketball court. When a player is generating that many defensive events, opposing guards just stop looking at the basket. They start looking for where Mobley is standing.
Oh, so he's in their heads before they even make a move.
Exactly. It deters driving angles before a drive even begins. Detroit's guards would come off a screen, see Mobley's 7-foot wingspan waiting in the paint, and instantly pick up their dribble.
Or settle for a highly contested mid-range jumper.
Right. And he held his ground physically against a really bruising Detroit front court without committing foolish fouls.
And while Mobley was altering the geometry, Jared Allen was busy breaking Detroit's spirit entirely.
Oh, the third quarter sequence.
Yeah. Yes. That sequence felt like the definitive end of the series. Detroit was desperately trying to make a run, the home crowd was trying to get loud, and Allen grabs an offensive rebound.
Right.
He draws a foul, goes to the line, and misses the free throw. But he gets his own rebound again, misses the putback attempt, gets the rebound a third time, gets fouled again, and finally finishes the sequence with a massive dunk.
Yeah, that sequence is the physical manifestation of a team losing its will to fight. I mean, when a defense forces a missed shot, they're emotionally preparing to run the other way on offense.
Right, you relax for a split second.
Yeah, so giving up an offensive rebound forces the defense to scramble backward, completely out of position. Doing it 3 times on a single possession requires so much emergency rotating.
It's physical exertion.
It drains the legs of everyone on the floor. Between Mobley and Allen, they combined for 44 points and 19 rebounds.
Yeah.
They just completely monopolized the paint.
But you can't have that interior dominance without space to operate. And that space didn't happen by accident, right? It was engineered on the perimeter by Cleveland's role players.
Specifically Sam Merrill.
Yeah, Merrill was a plus 22 in this game, dropped 23 points and hit 5 three-pointers. The sources pointed out this wild fact. The Cavaliers are essentially a completely average 500 win percentage team when Merrill doesn't play.
That really comes down to the concept of offensive gravity. Even casual fans can spot gravity if they watch the defenders instead of the ball.
How so?
Well, when Sam Merrill stands 25 feet from the hoop, his defender cannot take 2 steps toward the paint to help stop Jared Allen. Because if that defender helps inside, Merrill gets a wide-open 3.
And he shoots a high enough percentage that the math will just kill you.
Right. So Merrill's defender stays glued to the perimeter, effectively turning the paint into a pure 2-on-2 matchup there for the Twin Towers. And that is a matchup Cleveland will win every time.
Contrast that shooting gravity with the strategic acquisition of James Harden. Cleveland made a highly debated move, trading away Darius Garland to get Harden.
Yeah, people had a lot to say about that.
If you just look at the box scores from this playoff run, Harden has had some incredibly poor shooting nights. The casual fan might think Cleveland lost that trade, but the sources highlight a massive defensive mechanism that changes everything for them. Positional sturdiness.
This is a total masterclass in playoff roster construction. Darius Garland is an unbelievable offensive engine, but he stands 6'1". In a 7-game playoff series, opposing coaches are merciless.
They hunt mismatches.
Exactly. They will repeatedly run pick-and-roll actions, specifically designed to force that 6'1" guard to switch onto a 6'8" forward. Once that switch happens, they just throw the ball into the post and let the bigger player physically bully the smaller guard.
So even if Garland is playing great positional defense, he just gets back down into the basket because of, well, basic physics.
Precisely. But James Harden, despite lacking the lateral quickness he had in his 20s, has a very low center of gravity and is incredibly strong.
Right.
You can comfortably switch Harden onto positions 1 through 4. If a bigger forward tries to back him down in the post, Harden literally does not budge.
Wow.
Yeah, that physical sturdiness removes the defensive mismatch opposing teams usually exploit, allowing Cleveland to switch screens seamlessly.
And that seamless switching, combined with the sheer exhaustion of dealing with the Twin Towers, really brings us to the Detroit side of the equation. We talked about Cade Cunningham's disappearing act in the second half.
1 single point for your superstar.
When your season is on the line, Tobias Harris also had a downright terrible performance in an elimination game. You could physically see the burnout in their posture.
They absolutely hit a physical and emotional wall. I mean, the fatigue was so evident in how short their jump shots were falling and how slow their defensive rotations became.
But before we dig into the autopsy of this collapse, we really have to acknowledge the context. Detroit fans have a lot to be proud of this year.
For sure.
The Pistons won 60-plus games for the first time in nearly 20 years. They won their first playoff series in almost 2 decades by surviving a grueling 7-game battle against a very physical Orlando Magic team. This was a wildly successful season that reestablished their culture.
Yeah, it was a definitive arrival of Cade Cunningham as a true franchise cornerstone. He proved he is a legitimate #1 option on a championship contending team.
His numbers were stellar across the board. He finished top 5 in the MVP voting, In the playoffs, he gave them 28 points, 7.5 assists, and 5 rebounds a night.
Incredible stats.
Right, he shot 45% from 2, 40% from 3, and 86% from the line, all while playing really demanding perimeter defense. But I can't ignore the massive leak in the boat here. Cade averaged 5.6 turnovers per game in the playoffs.
That's a lot.
Handing the opponent almost 6 free possessions a game is catastrophic. Is his decision-making an actual liability, or is this the consequence of a flawed roster design?
If you watch the film of those turnovers, you quickly see it is almost entirely a roster issue. Because Detroit lacks secondary playmakers who can reliably create their own shot, opposing defenses just don't respect the supporting cast.
Ah, so they just load up on Cade.
Exactly. They play a heavy weak side zone, shading all their defenders toward Cunningham. He is seeing 3 pairs of eyes every time he drives. He's constantly forced to make difficult cross-court skip passes over tall defenders just to initiate the offense. When you carry that much of the burden, high turnover rates are inevitable.
So, if you're the Detroit general manager waking up today, fixing that turnover issue and alleviating Cade's exhaustion means acquiring a better supporting cast.
Right.
But doing so brings us face-to-face with a massive $300 million dilemma. You have to start making decisions on your young core, starting with Jalen Duren.
Yeah, Duren is eligible for a rookie max contract extension.
And if he makes an All-NBA team, that deal approaches $300 million. Even without the All-NBA nod, it sits around $240 million over 5 years.
Writing a check that large requires absolute certainty that the player contributes to winning basketball at the highest level. And Duren's playoff metrics offer anything but certainty.
Yeah, the traditional regular season stats look fine, but in the crucible of the playoffs, he averaged a modest 10 points and 8.5 rebounds. The jaw-dropping metric from the sources is this. The Pistons were outscored by 6 points when Duren was on the floor, and they outscored opponents by 29 points when he sat.
That's a massive swing.
The team's defense was an incredible 16 points better when he was off the floor. The backups, specifically Paul Reed-Beeball, Paul made the defense look noticeably faster and more switchable. What is the actual mechanism causing a phenomenal athlete like Duren to break his own team's defense?
It really comes down to processing speed and footwork in space. When Duren is on the floor, Detroit typically plays what is called drop coverage.
Which means he retreats into the paint to protect the rim, right?
Exactly, while his teammate fights over the screen. But against elite playoff guards, drop coverage gives up way too many open three-pointers. When Detroit tried to have Duren switch onto those quicker guards on the perimeter, his lateral footwork just wasn't fast enough.
They just blew right by him.
Yeah, forcing the entire Detroit defense to collapse inward, which leads to wide-open corner threes for the opponent.
So he is getting targeted in space, and you can't realistically hand a $50 million a year contract to a center who gets played off the floor defensively in a playoff series.
No, you really can't.
And the front office has a similar headache with Ausar Thompson. Ausar is eligible for a 5-year, $287 million extension. That is roughly $40 million a year. He brings unbelievable potential Defensive Player of the Year value to the wing, but his offensive game completely destroys the team's spacing.
This is where we have to look at how poor spacing actually operates in a half-court setting. Because Ausar struggles to shoot from the perimeter consistently, his defender doesn't even guard him out there.
They just leave him alone.
Pretty much. The defender sags 10 feet off him, essentially playing free safety in the middle of the paint. That extra body clogs up the driving lanes, which goes right back to making life miserable and exhausting for Cade Cunningham.
Wow. We hear constantly about the new collective bargaining agreement, the CBA, changing how teams build rosters. For the listener trying to understand the stakes of these contracts, how exactly do the new salary cap rules penalize a team for overpaying flawed players like Duren or Thompson?
Well, the new CBA introduced penalty thresholds known as the aprons. Think of the apron not just as a luxury tax, but as a credit card with a 500% interest rate, where the bank also takes away your right to buy a car or a house if you carry a balance.
Oh, wow. That's bleak.
Right. If Detroit pays max money to Cade and then gives $40 to $50 million a year to players with glaring deficiencies, their total payroll shoots past these aprons.
And what are the actual punishments when you cross that line?
You don't just pay massive financial fines. The league literally restricts your ability to manage your team. You lose access to mid-level exceptions to signed role players. You are forbidden from aggregating multiple player salaries together to make a trade.
So you're just stuck.
Completely stuck. And worst of all, your future first-round draft picks can be frozen and automatically moved to the very end of the first round, regardless of your team's record. You are paralyzed. You cannot afford to pay premium salaries to players who have to be hidden on either offense or defense.
Which means Detroit has a terrifying puzzle to solve. They desperately need combo guards who can dribble, shoot, and defend, or two-way wings who provide offensive upside without bleeding points on defense.
But players who can do both are the rarest commodities in the NBA.
Exactly. Plus, they have key unrestricted free agents pending: Tobias Harris, Javonte Green, Wendell Moore, and Kevin Huerter.
They hold the bird rights for some of these players, meaning they are legally allowed to exceed the salary cap to re-sign them. But doing so pushes them dangerously close to those apron penalties we just discussed. They have to decide if this specific core group is worth triggering restrictions that could handicap the franchise for the next half-decade.
While Detroit's general manager is staring at a whiteboard trying to make the math work, Cleveland gets to pack their bags for a heavyweight clash at Madison Square Garden. The Eastern Conference Finals against the New York Knicks await, and the contrast and preparation between these two teams is just fascinating.
Yeah, the defining storyline heading into Game 1 on Tuesday is definitely going to be the massive discrepancy in rest.
Right. The Knicks have not played a basketball game since May 10th. They took care of business early with a quick 4-game sweep in their series. It gives them a full 10-day rest advantage. Cleveland, meanwhile, is coming off a highly emotional, deeply physical 7-game war. Does a 10-day break help a team heal, or does it cause their competitive muscles to atrophy?
Honestly, it usually results in a very disjointed Game 1. Having your legs fully underneath you is a massive advantage late in the fourth quarter, but replicating playoff intensity in a practice gym is impossible.
So they might come out slow.
Yeah, the Knicks are going to have to shake off some serious rust against a Cleveland team that is already calibrated to the speed and violence of playoff basketball.
The on-court matchups are incredible, too. You have Jalen Brunson, a guard who relies entirely on elite footwork, pump fakes, and driving angles, trying to solve the puzzle of Cleveland's interior defense.
Getting all the way to the rim against Mobley and Allen is going to require immense creativity.
And on the flip side, we have the uncertain status of the Knicks' premier perimeter defender, OG Anunoby. He has been dealing with a hamstring issue, and that 10-day break might be the exact window he needed to get cleared for Game 1.
If Anunoby is healthy, his ability to navigate screens and challenge Donovan Mitchell at the point of attack will absolutely dictate the entire rhythm of the series.
And just to ensure you have the full picture of the NBA landscape, the Western Conference bracket is fully locked in on the other side. We were getting a highly anticipated showdown between two incredibly young, talented rosters, the San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder.
It is the ultimate changing of the guard. The old dynasties have been swept aside, and we are officially witnessing the new generation fighting for control of the league.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, there is one final provocative thought I want you to mull over as we head into the conference finals. For the last 10 years, the entire NBA has been fundamentally obsessed with small ball. The philosophy was that perimeter shooting, 5-out spacing, and speed should be prioritized above all else, even if it meant sacrificing size. But look at what Cleveland just did. They absolutely dismantled a 60-win team using two massive, physical big men operating in the paint.
It's wild to see.
Did Cleveland just prove that the old-school Twin Towers model is officially the new market inefficiency? Have we circled all the way back around to overwhelming size ruling the league? It is something every front office will have to ask themselves when they look at their rosters this summer.
That's a great question. We'll have to wait and see.
Thank you for listening. Please comment. Like, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Spotify, please leave 5-star review. It will help the channel grow. Until next time, please check our previous episodes.